All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Heck, Gabe, and Goose.
What up?
Growth. In this episode, the crew covers topics that range from self-awareness, strength development, good pain, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Fred DeVito and Napoleon Hill. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off. All right, so, we'll kick off. I mean, this is Growth. It's just the crew here, and we're going to talk, what everyone's opinion or spin on this term or however you want to see it, this little sector of life that we all go through. They define it as growth as an act or process or a manner of growing, development, gradual increase, size, or stage of development. Again, this is a revisit from episode 105, so check that out. So that was literally almost or more than 100 episodes ago, so 2 years ago.
Just about, yeah. So
more than 2 years ago, so check that out, and hopefully if you can compare episode 105 to episode 209, there is some growth, right? So we'll start like right off the bat. Is growth important? So this question is going to be a discussion amongst the guys. Is growth important?
It seems like it doesn't need to be stated, but I mean, it has to. It's like obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Without growth, there's no improvement.
Absolutely.
You know, like there's every day you should grow a little bit of something in any whatever it is in life, but then you can in that sector you can improve on whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, we all have the ability to not only improve upon ourselves, but we should almost have the obligation to improve, amongst ourselves. And the important thing is to really understand that growth doesn't necessarily have to always be positive. Sometimes you get growth off of a negative situation or something that's, not as, what you thought it was going to be, but at least if you have the ability to reflect upon, there's going to be growth there.
Yes. But yeah, exactly, because you have to realize the quote-unquote mistakes or whatever you might be doing, whatever. You're probably going to grow more from, not necessarily negative, but like you learn from somewhat experiences that learn to get better from those past experiences. Yeah,
for sure. And not only that, too, it's like when specific situations happen, you want to have the ability to sharpen or to have better tools in your pocket for the next time it happens, right? Yes. And so if you're constantly running into the same situation over and over and over again, obviously that's, for me, that'd be a sign from God, sign from universe, sign from whatever, and it's trying to tell you and bring it to the forefront, you need to resolve this or approach it in a different manner.
Well, yeah, that's obviously like what the role of, not the role of insanity, but like you keep doing the same thing over and again expecting different results. So
yeah,
you have
the
to realize
definition of insanity, yes.
You have to realize you're doing something wrong to change it and then to obviously improve upon it or, take it, like you said, take a different angle.
Yeah. And so it always reminds me of, I just remember this guy growing up. He would always say, I am who I am. Nothing's going to change me. And I remember like thinking about that. And I'm like, initially, as a kid, I'm like, man, that's tough. Like, what a tough thing to say.
Stand your feet in and
stand in your ground.
I am how I am.
Yeah. And then later on, obviously in life, I realized that sometimes stubbornness doesn't always pay off.
Sure.
And also, you can lose relationships really quick by being that way, not having that bendability, being flexible or understanding or compassionate towards other people's views or approach to life.
Because, I mean, relationships is compromise. And if you're not willing to compromise anything, then that's, like you said, it's a detriment to like any kind of relationship you're going to have or potentially might build.
And do you really, though? And like if you ever truly think about it, like, do you really want to use the same approach or the same answer to every problem?
Well, no, because not every problem's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what I mean. And so I guess when you're younger, you're using the same approach, right, to every problem until you realize, all right, this key doesn't work for this door.
Yeah.
Yes.
So with growth, there's always experience. So you experience a lot of stuff and you grow with it. So each experience is a different it's a different path, you know. So as you get older, obviously you're gonna change the way you do things with certain things, you know. Like I suppose when you're young, it's like the same thing. You just answer with the same thing, and it's not the same answer for every issue or problem.
And Goose, we had a conversation talking about missing opportunities, right? For some people, whether they delay their thought process or delay their response in something, and if they continue to do the same, answer every problem with that same approach, like, oh, let me really think about it. Sometimes opportunity presents itself, and it has a smaller window for an answer than you typically, I guess, approach the situation.
Yeah, and if you answer with a delay like you did with everything, you can miss out on something huge. So it's like, and then if you don't learn from that mistake by missing out on your same reaction to everything else, is like you delay. Now the next time when the opportunity comes, you're gonna act upon it faster. So that's your learning experience, which is growth onto that issue. You know what I mean? You're growing. All right, now when I get an opportunity, I'm not gonna wait the last second to answer. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you can see growth in that person there. Whether it could be anything, it could be like at work, it could be leadership, it could be anything, it could be with your kids. You can see the growth in that person when they change their mindset.
I think that's important too, because you getting feedback from other people, and not necessarily feedback. When we say feedback, I always feel like sometimes it's like in a traditional sense where you sit down, with your boss and you go over like your yearly mandatory or whatever meeting, right, to see how well or how bad you did that year. When I say feedback, it could be a spouse and you getting in an argument. Feedback could be you and your kid coming up with a disagreement. Yeah. Feedback could be your boss probably sitting you down, for a pep talk or whatever. And it's having the ability to really use the feedback, because I know as a strong-minded person, sometimes you have to, or a lot of times you have to ignore the noise. The problem with that is that you're so headstrong that you mess up on communication. So you're not always good at it, right? And you're not always good at receiving it. Yeah. And so you're like, oh yeah. And you encounter these people that the second someone gives them feedback and it's negative, they're a hater. Sure. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh my gosh. And the opposite is true, when sometimes it's just feedback. Yeah. Yeah. And the ability to not take everything so personal is huge too. That's growth. Yeah. Right. Having the ability to allow your spouse or your significant other to give you something negative and for you to process it in a way, right? And not with emotion, right? Yeah, not freaking out. Yeah, and like, wait, what do you mean? What? Yeah. And the reason why I do believe the reason why we do a lot of that is because we're so comfortable in a relationship. Sure. Because that typically, I would say typically, doesn't happen in the beginning of anyone's relationship, right? Yeah. You're not flying off the handle. Obviously, if you are, there's something, other things going on.
It's underlying problems.
Yeah. So, but if a year or two in, all of a sudden you get a little bit more comfortable, and you're like, wait, hang on. It's almost like talking trash to your brothers, or talking trash to another sibling or whatever, just going back and forth, the bickering. If you can get two people that can, I'm not saying it processes it perfectly every time, because somebody's going to be wrong. Yeah. I mean, we're all going to be wrong at one point, right? Sure. And we are wrong. It's the relationships that will last are the ones that can, we always say compromise, but I think it's also having the maturity to accept that, whatever that is that's coming your way, break it down, and then if it's still edgy or if it's still off, then fight your battle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Then do that. But if you look at it and you're taking it as personal and like it's a shot at your ego, that's what ruins it.
Yeah, because you have to be able to properly process it, because you can't, like you said, you can't come back with emotion, because then you're just,
it's hard.
You're kind of disregarding it.
It is hard. Yes, exactly. And it's hard because sometimes their emotions are high and you're arguing about something that maybe you're correct about. Yeah. And what stinks is sometimes you can be on the right side of the argument. Yeah. So if there was like a judge in the middle and like, I don't know, he's right, or I don't know, she's right. but then you still got to kind of eat that.
Yeah.
Don't end it there. I would say end the arguing or whatever there, maybe, and maybe it shouldn't get any heightened because clearly your message is not being, received very well. So they always say it's like, don't get louder, strengthen your argument. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people are getting loud and just yelling. Like, dude, you think that yelling's gonna enter into that person's brain? Like, oh, that's a loving way to communicate, and now I'm gonna listen.
And the message gets lost, obviously, and whatever. Is
so lost.
Yeah.
Lost.
But you said when you stand back and kind of like actually maybe you may not have came across, I guess, the most eloquently, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But when you think back, if you actually think about what was being said or whatever, you can probably think back and like, okay, you can kind of take the points that are actually being made as opposed to just flying off the handle, like, or just immediately reacting to the feedback that's being given to you as opposed to just actually processing.
One of the things that I've read, and I find to be absolutely true, is strengthening, like truly broadening your vocabulary. And here's why. If you think about kind of, I guess when the human species was developing, they were communicating at all. We've always been communicating with one another, right? Mm-hmm. It just wasn't as complex in the beginning.
Sure.
And just think about if maybe your mouth or something was covering your mouth and people couldn't quite hear what you're saying, and you're just like mumbling stuff, and they're in their minds like, what is this person saying? And then what happens is you become frustrated, right? And then so you get louder and louder saying the same thing, like, you can't understand me, they're not understanding me. Maybe if I say it louder, I can come across with my communication.
Well, that's what happens with language barriers. Is people just start randomly
saying
it louder, like
your
magic doesn't understand what I'm
as
saying.
if the understanding isn't on the volume. It's the understanding is between the actual the true communication,
the words,
the words that are being said, the dialect. And so when even animals per se, they have what I would say is like limited sounds coming out of their mouth. Maybe it's more complex than we will ever know. Maybe we'll study and we find, because I know dolphins and stuff have like very complex, language system.
Yeah, there's more nuance to all that.
Yes, exactly. But I'm saying, like, think about how a child or a baby expresses themselves and they're constantly crying, right? And that's how you have to differentiate what that cry means. Is that a wet diaper? Does that mean I'm hungry? Does that mean something else? As you get older, you can explain yourself more because you have a broader vocabulary, right? And so the more the higher your vocabulary is, the better you can explain yourself, right? Sure. So if you kept telling someone, I'm mad, well, the word M-A-D, mad, can mean so many different things, right? And those so many different things actually have other words for them. Okay, so if someone says I'm mad, that can mean I'm crazy. So why don't you say crazy? Or you could say I have psychological issues that I can't process this the correct way, and it's leading me to get angry with you. Way different than saying I'm mad.
Yes. Oh wow. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or saying like I'm mad about you. It's the same thing saying as I'm crazy about you, which is way different as in the other version of that. I'm mad could mean I'm ticked off and frustrated. I'm angry. Right, and so if your and I apologize, I know this sounds super basic, but this can go with every emotion.
Sure.
And if you just say I'm sad, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, are you sad, or what kind of sad? And once you start breaking that down, and I think that communication, that detailed communication, could help the other person understand a little bit more better.
Sure.
Than just the basic word is I am sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not to take away that you're sad, but I think it helps the relationship. I think it helps the communication. But broadening your vocabulary allows you to further express yourself in better detail and comprehension. And so when somebody is saying that they're mad and like, all right, what are you mad about?
Sure.
I'm mad. You're mad about your childhood, and you're mad about your financial situation. You're mad about your spiritual situation. Like, there's so many things you could be mad about. And you ever see it's like somebody has like, oh, they have a chip on their shoulder. But what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Because now we just associate that with just ego. But if you're a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you're breaking certain things down as to what was that trigger point, and then you go reverse back into time to see where that occurred, or what instance influenced that person from expressing themselves in this manner, whatever it is. But I find that, yes, that is true. If you broaden your vocabulary, you can better, obviously, it makes sense, basic sense. Broaden, you can better express yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so let's talk about learning from others. We don't have to necessarily go through the same pain as other people, but when we talk about growth, a lot of that is learning from other people's experiences, not all yours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It seems like to some degree, like you don't really learn from experiences unless you experience it yourself.
Yes.
It seems too. But or the other hand of it is like unless you have like a mentor who's actually walking you through certain things or something, like you don't really like. Some people don't accept the experience really full. Unfortunately, people, you have to go through some crazy stuff to like really understand the meaning behind the experience that somebody's trying to explain to you.
Yeah, I do. I agree with that, and I agree that you have to still go through the experiences yourself. But I do feel like you can learn from somebody by just using that data and putting it in your toolbox, right? And so if I see that my brother keeps walking into a wall, and he doesn't want to walk into a wall, but he just keeps doing it, and he wants to get out of the room, but he just keeps walking into the wall. I'm not saying that I may necessarily not walk into a wall, but I'm going to say, like, all right, if I keep doing this, I know the result is not going to be what I want it to be. So let me make an adjustment, and now I can apply data. So yeah, I still have to experience, X, Y, and Z myself, but now I have more information because I'm using the experience of someone else. Does that make sense? Like almost like you're using data, not necessarily that, this means I can go through life perfectly. Yeah, sure. No, that's not true. But you can also use that, put that in your back pocket, like, I remember when
it comes up at some point.
Yes, and that's
you at least have an
what it
understanding
is.
of what might happen.
Yeah, and I feel like we had a conversation with somebody, I don't know what it was. It was on this podcast, and I felt like that kind of got twisted up in some weird, funky way. But I think that's the true meaning of it. It's where it's not saying that like, I can learn from other people's experience so I don't make the same mistakes. You might make the same mistake, literally, unintentionally.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But then you could quickly apply the things that they already did 5 years ago. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like the solutions, like you can solution it probably faster. So I might have bumped my head, but then the second walk up, I'm going to make a left turn or a right turn and maybe see if that little adjustment makes a difference. And so maybe I'm not in that weird cycle for 5 years, and maybe I'm just there for a year. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Sure. So I think the more information, which goes back to saying broadening your vocabulary, broadening your awareness, broadening your knowledge in multiple areas. The classic quote was like, know a thing or two about a thing or two. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you have to go crazy deep detail into, and start doing scientific research on every situation. But if you have, I do believe if you do have some kind of knowledge and a little bit of everything, it's going to help.
Sure.
Become that well-rounded person. They tell athletes all the time, play more than one sport when you're in high school, or play more than one sport as a kid, because you can use, just because I'm on a soccer field, you mean to tell me I can't use any of that on a basketball court? That's false. I 1000% can, because now I can read ball movement, I can read angles, I can read plays. You can and apply that, and it's not even the same situation, mm-hmm. but I can still use that knowledge here. And so it's kind of the same thing, not to be corny and use a sport analogy, but it's kind of the same thing with running a business. We've all started businesses, and I've applied stuff that had nothing to do with the Blessed Lifestyle brand, nothing to do with Rotated Views podcast, and I used them for this in marketing materials, in advertising, all that stuff, or even just connections. Mm-hmm. I made a connection with a guy 3 years prior to making a specific video that I then tapped into 3 years later, used them, and it was information that I had.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was not that I used it right away. I just, when I need it, I'll tap into that.
use all your sources too. Like you said, 3 years ago, you met this guy. Who would have thought that you were making a video and like, dang, dude, I remember this guy. Let's give him a call. Or you would have been like, even if you didn't remember, you would have had someone, but then later on down the road, you're like, oh, I remember so and so. Like,
yeah,
you could have.
That's quite literally what happened. It wasn't that I forgot. It just wasn't the right timing.
Yeah.
And when the timing came, it was the first person I made a phone call to. But it's having that arsenal and it's having that experience. That was an experience for me. But if you're not tapping, that's also a good point when you talk about growth. Is using what's around you, using your resources, not abusing your resources, not abusing people and relationships and money. I'm talking about using them and utilizing what is there. Because a lot of times people say, oh, I never had the opportunity. I don't have the resources. I can't say that that's not true, but I don't know if that is true.
Yeah.
Right? It might be true. But are we really using all of our resources to get or to do the things that we truly are here for? If you're here to make an impact on people and you're super worried about your physical appearance at all times, right? And you're not in the fitness industry. I'm talking like you're so wound up on what you look like. And and of course people have like their different things.
Yeah.
But are you really letting that stop you from making a specific connection or your background because, oh, I didn't grow up as wealthy as this person, that means I can't speak to them or reach out to them, right? And we all do this stuff.
Yeah.
And then we become like, oh, I don't know if I'm even worthy of speaking to this person or worthy of reaching out to them. But that person knows you, right? Let's just say yes. In this scenario, yes, that person knows you. That's a resource that you're not tapping into. Mm-hmm. Right. I'd rather them say no, and then now I know where I stand. All right, well, the satisfaction, I know this might sound weird, the satisfaction that I know I can cross something else off because I reached out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The answer was no. It might be no for today. I can reach out and further, but I'm going to move on to the next, the next resource and tap into the things. And then all of a sudden we started, we knew more people than we thought that were creative, that had businesses that we brought onto this podcast. And even the opposite is true. Do you have a small business or do you have an idea? Do you have a concept? Do you have a message that you're not utilizing us for? Right? And you can't say we're not made available. We literally offer it, on a weekly basis, and people are reaching out. And it's not like we're hiding either. Yeah. We're like at the epicenter of this town, literally, of where we conduct our business, and then we're quite literally on social media every single day talking about it. And so, are you out there listening right now, not using a resource like the Rotated Views podcast? Our last guest from episode 208, Jason Peters, he reached out to me and he found me through a connect that he had. Is he using all his resources? I would say yeah. And after having a conversation with the kid, he really is using all his resources. He's reaching out. He has no shame. Listen, what is more important? Your ego and you feeling silly in front of another person, or your dream? You just let your ego be more important than your dream. Mm-hmm. You just let your ego be more important than your kids. You just let your ego be more important than your future.
Yeah, because you're
tripping over it.
You assume no when they can be more than willing to help you.
They're not going to talk to me. Why would they talk to me?
Yep.
Funny part was a guest rescheduled with us, and that slot opened right up. I'm like, yep. Are you good for X, Y, and Z date? Yes. All right, bam. That same day, an hour before. And so you don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Maybe that person you're scared to reach out is waiting for your call, waiting to help mentor somebody, waiting to give you resources. How do we know? We don't know. We're sitting here, we want to grow. We all want this. Whatever our dreams are, we want them. But it's almost like, dude, how bad? Yeah. How bad do you want it? Are you willing to every Monday, regardless if you have content, regardless if you have a guest, still set up the podcast thing, still talk about the same old things? No, we still switch it up. We all still show up, but we switch out their content. We show up week in and week out like the folks and the professionals that we're supposed to, because we know what we have is special. We know that we have is impacting lives. We go to gatherings all the time and people say, like, I love your podcast. Didn't even know they were listening to it. Yeah. Had no idea they were listening to it. Yeah. And or want to be a guest. Or like, they have merch of ours. I didn't even know. There's this guy who's following me following the Blessed Lifestyle brand for 2 whole years. We've been around for 2 years. 2 weeks ago, I get something from this individual, and he sends me a picture of all the shirts. No idea. It was a college buddy. Had no idea he was supporting me the whole time. Or supporting the lifestyle brand the whole time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. He never shared it with me. He never took a picture of himself wearing any of this stuff. But it was happy birthday to the Blessed Lifestyle brand thing that I posted with a little cupcake with the number 2 on it. And he responded. He's like, I've been supporting you since day one. And I know because there's some of the shirts we don't even offer anymore. They're like day one shirts. And so you don't know the kind of impact you're doing. And guess what? Let's not be so selfish to not grow and understand that we're influencing people. You're being watched. And so not only you're cutting yourself short if you don't speak to that person or you don't reach out or you don't tap into your resources, you're also shortening the people who are watching you too. Because imagine if you made a connect and that thing went somewhere, and now you're exposing your friends and family to something even bigger. But you said no before, and you cut that off before, right? And so to me, that's growth. To me and Goose had a conversation today. My thing is positively influencing the people around me. I genuinely want them to think, and mainly the kids, I want to inspire them. I told Goose today not to do the same exact thing to me. Not do what you want to do, but understand that if you truly do want something, don't give up. You can actually have it, and hopefully that we're providing the inspiration. We're providing the motivation. I was on a talk show like a month ago, and I was talking about the difference between motivation and inspiration. This is growth, right? Yeah. At one point, I didn't understand I didn't know what the difference was between being inspired and being motivated. And I'm not talking about a Webster's Dictionary version. I'm talking about like truly being inspired and truly being motivated. So I always talk about, motivation is like deodorant. You need it every single day. Yeah. So motivation to me pushes you. That's going to push you to your goal. Like, get up, go, boom, push you. Inspiration is pulling you. And so when you so I'm inspired by my own kids. I'm inspired by their energy. I'm inspired by the potential of what their future can be. And if that's not pulling me to be a better person or a better dad or a better man, then I don't know. But there's going to be days where that's not necessarily the forefront of whatever, and then, the motivation kicks in. So now the motivation is going to push you. So if you have something pushing you and pulling you towards one direction, you're bound to make something happen. You're bound to make an impact. You're bound to, number one, change. You're bound to make an impact. But you have to understand that. And to me, that's maturity. To me, that's growth, understanding. Because when you're a young gunner, that we call the young bulls, dude, you're going off the strength. And I know that sounds like so funny, but that's what you're going off of. You're just you really truly do think you know it all, and you're just gonna go and no one's stopping me. I'm going. You're a bull. That's what you are. You're a young bull. Like, that's what you are. Until later on, obviously, you get humbled, and we all do, and you just kind of process things differently, and hopefully you grow from that, and hopefully it kind of changes your approach moving forward. But it's important that you do grow and not lose that energy, because anyone can tell you as a 50-year-old man, and there's different cases, that a 25-year-old man typically would have more energy than a 50-year-old man. Obviously, there's different cases, and maybe some people are in the best shape of their lives at that age, at 50. So, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, a 25-year-old would be stronger than a 50-year-old, right? And so you're going off sure energy, right? You're going off straight up, this is what I'm built on, this is what I have, and I'm going at just balls out basically on testosterone. I don't even know what it is. Like, whatever it is, trying to prove yourself, trying to gain the respect of those of you respect, right? And in that process, you get tired, because there's only so much you can go uphill. There's only so much you can take on the world. There's only so much you can do by yourself. And then all of a sudden you start becoming smarter, right? And so all that hard work and energy, it will pay off. But then all of a sudden, now you got to start using intelligence. Now you got to start using your resources a little bit better. Now you got to start preserving your energy correctly to then be applied the appropriate way.
Well, that's obviously going back to the point. I think it's the growth that understanding that you can't do it all by yourself. That
Yes.
you need the help of other people to help you push forward. That to break through the initial threshold that you couldn't do initially by yourself, even with just pure, whatever energy, whatever you call it.
Yeah. So like changing gears, when we do encounter these things that don't work out, right? And so we're hit with a wall, basically, and you endure that pain. Do you think that pain itself is growth, or that pain is just that experience?
I think the pain is growth, because you're obviously learning from that. You might be heartbroken for that moment, but you're gonna learn from that.
Yeah.
After it's all said and done.
Well, I feel like it's at least an experience, because sometimes I do feel like pain is growth, but sometimes you go through the pain and you're so angry at the world for whatever reason. Your significant other broke up with you, and it could have been your fault, but you're just so angry at everything that pain you're enduring, you don't even want to hear it. You're not trying to grow. You think I'm trying to grow now? I'm just mad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But it's that moment, no. I mean, I don't think the growth is in that
later,
moment.
yes.
But when you realize, when actually, obviously, like we were talking before, like the emotion's gone, and like you kind of reflect back on what was happening, and you kind of, take whatever bits and pieces from there, you can grow from that pain of the situation, whatever is happening. But in that moment, no, it's like not necessarily growth in that moment in time.
And that reminds me of somebody saying, "Is like I don't know necessarily 100% what I want. I know what I don't want." And then they'll go on a list almost out of anger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you looking for? And not just saying relationships. I'm saying like maybe in a job or a business.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never doing that again. I'm never going to work for a boss like X, Y, and Z again, because you endured that pain.
Well, I think last two guests pretty much said something like that. Like, I don't want to work for somebody.
So do you think there's such thing as good pain or good suffering when it comes to learning?
Well, I think good pain is the pain you learn from.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But I mean, it can't be like obviously fatal pain, if that makes sense.
Of course. Yeah, no, and I do think like sometimes when you make a lifestyle change, like when you go on a diet or you start exercising, you're going to experience that pain because what you're so used to being allowed to eat certain foods and things, and it's like it's painful saying no, right? It's hard to be strong-minded at a weak point, right? And so now you're weak. You're like, oh my gosh, I started this new fasting thing, and I'm so used to eating at 9 o'clock in the morning, and now I'm not because I'm going through this pain. But I would say that is a different kind of pain. That pain is going to help you, build you.
I mean, and to that some effect, that's not self-inflicted, but that's like you're you're doing that, understanding what the outcome of that is, as opposed to going through something not expecting the pain to come.
Yes.
So that's a different kind of growth.
It doesn't mean that it's easy or easier, but it's true. Whether it's the self-inflicted, where it's like, all right, I'm going to put myself through X, Y, and Z to become a better person, versus I want this relationship I want to marry this person, and now we're broken up. And it's a totally, of course, it's a different pain. But I think into that notion that I think that there is levels to it, and there's different, which goes back to what I was saying before. Are you mad or are you mad? It's that's why using the word pain, what does that mean though? Because it could mean a breakup, or it can mean like I literally just snapped my foot in half from twisting my ankle on a curb, which I've done. And so there's two different there's that two different pain, and I think processing pain is the same as the way you process pain is almost broadening your vocabulary, and the way you can I guess differentiate or navigate through it, looking back, what could I have done better? Was there something? Because there's a lot of times we look back and like, even if you don't even want to admit it, like, I was wrong. I was wrong, and there's nothing you can do. It's like, oh
it's
man,
a done deal. Yeah.
Well, and then you also have the ego, where it's like, nah, forget that. Nah. And you get all, like whatever, like quote headstrong or ignorant, whatever you want to call it. And you're not really dealing with what's real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're dealing with whatever fantasy you have going on in your head and what you think it should be.
Or ignoring what the current situation actually is.
Yeah, which leads into expectations, right? And so a lot of times frustration leads that, I set a goal to become X, Y, and Z, and in 1 month, and I didn't really make the best plan, and it was kind of out there, a little, like outlandish to accomplish in 1 month. And those 30 days pass, and I'm completely, frustrated because it didn't happen. Right. And so expectations versus, reality or what you're putting in. I could understand if you're putting in work day in and day out, but your expectations also have to fall on a little bit more realistic side if you're the type to get frustrated. Sure. Right. And so I'm not saying not dream big, but I'm saying, is it believable to you? Because if it is believable to you, then that's okay. Then dream that big. But if it doesn't happen, what are the actions you're going to take? Are you going to just quit because X, Y, and Z didn't happen, or are you going to make adjustments? That's growth. Yeah. Because some people they go for something, they start a business, it doesn't happen, it doesn't work out exactly how they thought. Life doesn't anyway, which I'm still shocked.
Yes. Sure.
Then they just stop altogether. Is that what you should have done? Or did you even want that? How bad did you even want it?
If it easily fell apart in your mind that quickly. Yeah,
I talk about it in the motivation files. It's just a test. It's to see how bad you truly want it. And then after a while, if it's still not working out, I highly recommend you sit down and talk to someone.
Sure.
Maybe a mentor or someone who's been in this specific experience, because you could have very unrealistic things going on right there. Yeah. And you might be damn well driving yourself crazy for the rest of your life. Something's going wrong. Something's wrong. You have to figure it out. There's one thing of changing the oil in your car and figuring that out and putting air in the tires and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Windshield wiper fluid or blinker fluid.
Headlight fluid.
Yeah. But there's another thing, completely exchanging engines out. You know what I mean? Or or whatever else, doing something dramatic to a car. It's in the beginning, you can try to figure it out yourself. And then you got to come to a point where you got to take it to a mechanic. Yeah. It's the same thing with your goals and dreams. Like, you try to figure it out, but then if it's still not working, years and years and years and year later, and you're still mad, you got to talk to somebody. You got to figure something else out. You got to come up with a better plan, better execution, whatever. And your plan might be right, just different execution style.
Sure.
Understanding that alone will save you years. Just that. Think about that car mechanic situation, right? I need oil. All right, it probably needs a quart. You can go to your little local auto body shop and grab, a quart of oil, put it in, the light goes off, blah, blah, blah. Understand the mileage, understand all that stuff. There might be something bigger going on, right? Replacing a windshield wiper. You could probably figure that out yourself. There's plenty of YouTube videos you could probably... But when you start dabbing into like bigger things and you're trying to make your, you want your car to have more horsepower and all this other crazy stuff, you probably should either study more or talk to people who've done this already and it's that same thing. It's like, all right, maybe I can make a few adjustments. Maybe I can make adjustments to the way I eat. Maybe I can make adjustments to my plan, on my calendar and who I hang out with. Yeah. Let's see what changes that does. And if you're still doing the same thing wrong or investing in the wrong money or you're in the red for 5 years in a row, it's probably time to talk to that metaphorical mechanic.
Sure.
When it comes to the dad life or just the people around you, is pain something you should teach your kid, and I'm talking about the subject matter about, and like explain like the reason why we say X, Y, and Z is because I love you, and it's because I know I've experienced it, and it's not always fun. And to me, it's again, it goes back to what you said, Gabe. It's like our kids are still going to have to learn. They're going to learn. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Life is still going to throw them lessons possibly that we've never gone through. But I do think it's our job and duty to give them heads up on specific things, on major things.
Yeah.
And me, only speaking as a child, like, of course, you don't listen to your parents. Like, whatever they say is like, I'm going to do whatever I want anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they have that. Remember how I was saying, though, I met someone and it was a tool in my pocket that I didn't necessarily apply now. But then 3 years later, I was able to apply. Sure. It could be that. And I've done that with my parents. My parents said stuff to me maybe as a teenager that I applied when I became a dad. Yeah. I didn't even use it all those years. 10, 15 years passed. And all of a sudden, I'm like, whoa, I'm tapping into deeper knowledge that was given to me as a kid. And so I don't think it's the avoidance of pain. I don't think it's of course, you don't want to see your kid hurt. You don't want to see your kid suffer. But this is the element that we live in. Everyone endures pain, no matter what. It's not avoidable. And so just in that process, if I'm inspiring my kids to become better versions of themselves and setting the tone in my own house or in my own environment where they're watching, right? That's the best that I can do. I know that they're going to face things that, I never did or I couldn't have the ability to maybe explain to them. I don't know. But I do find the obligation, it's mandatory, that I teach them specific things or understandings of things and in a way a kid can understand, right?
Sure.
Like I'm not teaching my kid, a 2-year-old, quantum physics.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And so like you're just growing and you're like, this is a piggy bank and we're going to split this piggy bank in 2 or maybe 3 and 30 of your money goes here, 30 minutes. That might be nothing. And then all of a sudden they're in college, like I should put money away because basically this is what I was doing. I was doing this with my pennies. Maybe I should start doing this with my dollars.
Sure.
And you hope that that's what that is. And then you just do the best that you can. I don't think there's, really much more, one can do. I'm not sure. There might be. I don't know. I don't know. What do you recommend someone to grow through what they go through? Right. And so we have people around us that are going through situations that are, maybe painful, not the best. They're stuck. They feel stuck. They feel unheard. And they're just maybe just in a rut or maybe just in a bad place right now. They're starting to reach out, right? Where do we go, or what suggestion do you have for someone who's maybe not reaching out or is just kind of stuck by themselves, banging their head, walking into the same wall?
I mean, it kind of goes back to what you said earlier. It was like you have to, when you got to that point where you can't do anything by yourself, is the point where you have no choice but to reach out because I think what you said earlier is like you have to go speak to somebody who's in a similar situation or at least has the understanding of the situation you're going through or at least to some regard that they will help you, at least counsel you through it, even if they can't obviously walk you through the exact solution of what your problem is, but at least have an understanding, at least give you some encouragement or give you some like a little bit of understanding of like what might be coming up or just how to deal with the situation, if that makes any sense. I think it's all perspective. You get a different perspective, a different spin on what you're experiencing, and that could, and not saying that every time you reach out to somebody it's going to be the perfect answer, every time you reach out to somebody, or it might not be the right person, but you as yourself, you're stuck in the weeds of your own situation too, so you need somebody outside, like you said, the outside.
First you have to accept the fact that you can't fix it, you can't figure it out, so then you gotta like, all right, who do I go to? And just go from there. For sure.
Obviously people you trust and
absolutely. If you find yourself there, please reach out to someone, have a conversation.
There's experts in every field, so I mean, there's always somebody you can reach out to that's willing to talk to you.
Absolutely. All right, so we like to wrap things up with quotes, and the first one is by Napoleon Hill. Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle. The second one by Fred DeVito. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Growth. In this episode, the crew covers topics that range from self-awareness, strength, development, good pain, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Fred DeVito and Napoleon Hill. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.